Esco Lawyers Show. I am so excited to have two amazing guests with me today, David Cly and Brennan Girdler. Who? Hi guys, say hi.
Hello.
Hey Gary, how's it going?
It's going great. So David and Brennan are two of my marketing partners and are just real experts in a bunch of different areas. Number one, marketing. Number two is SEO and Google presence on websites. Number three is social media marketing. And David and I have been partners for 5 years. Right, it's right now 5 years. It's coming up right now 5 years when we
Yeah,
first
I think
became. No, a little bit. No, it was December because I remember I had a couple marketing vultures that I had to get rid of before you came on board. But part of the story is I later learned that Brendan and I, that David and I had been partners unknowing. I hadn't known it in times past. So anyway, hey David, would you introduce yourself, please?
sure. Gary, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of your Ask a Lawyer show. My name is David Cly, owner of Orange Design, located in downtown West, pretty close to you. So if I point down that way, Gary's down that way a couple miles. So we work in close vicinity to each other, and we've been working together for marketing, design, development, SEO, paid advertising for, as Gary said, a number of years now. I think the results speak for themselves. We've achieved really good success, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Thank you. Thank you. That's wonderful. Brennan, introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, my name is Brennan Girdler. I'm the team leader here at Orange Design. I do a lot of different things, and been working with you closely for about 2 years now. And really interested, what I'm interested in doing, asking you a couple questions that are marketing based and tied to small businesses, especially in these strange times. So that's kind of where I'm waiting to do.
Great, great, great. So let me first start by asking. So David, um, uh, tell me when we first started. I remember having a conversation with you where you had worked on my stuff before, but I really didn't know it. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we work with a lot of different agencies, and I don't want to get specific due to our agreements, but a lot of agencies white label stuff to us. So there may be times when you're working with the agency and we're actually doing the work on their behalf. We've also worked in a number of different campaigns together, like you said, without you knowing, and ultimately it kind of came when you came to us as a recommendation to us. Recommended by that other agency when they brought you straight to us. That was kind of when I think our first real interaction started, and where we started talking about here's what I want to do, this is what they were doing. And
Right.
forgive me if my memory is a little bit foggy because it has been quite a period of time, but that's my remembrance of it.
Hey, can you guys? I'm getting echo with you guys and some feedback. Uh, just so you know.
Oh, sorry about that.
Because I'm hearing you guys, yeah. So what you guys do is, if you could tell our listeners a little bit about what you guys do.
Mhm. Really, it's full service marketing across the board. So anything related to design, development, SEO, paid advertising, whether it's AdWords, Facebook, LinkedIn, certified, and all those different platforms. Basically, what we do is we make people successful. So people come to us as a startup. People come to us as a business that's already established and trying to move forward. And generally speaking, we've achieved really great success for all those that came on board for that.
And you have with my firm too. So
Yeah.
we are. How would you, Brennan? Tell me where Burger Law in 5 years of doing this. About where do we rank in Google searches in the main areas we target? Or would you say we're consistently top three? Is that fair?
Yeah, and oftentimes more than top three. In terms of like personal injury, wrongful death, auto accident, you're usually up there based on where people are.
And why is that? What does that do from a marketing perspective? especially today in the COVID times.
Well, I would say that hopefully it gets you more leads and good leads.
Right, right. So one of the things we've done together with you guys is have a marketing plan. And how can you describe to me? And here, look, I have a question up from Adam. I'm just gonna ask it because it doesn't matter whether you're a law firm, you're a restaurant, you're a carpenter, you're a painter, you whatever your business is. America is built on small business. So, what's the best way for small businesses to begin marketing, set a marketing budget, and start making an imprint in the world?
Well, I think the first part of that would really be just establishing the right goals because, you have to have a destination in order to know when you've arrived there. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of companies make is they have this idea. They say, I want to rank on Google. Okay, for what? How often? What radius? Is it national? Is it local? Really clearly define the goals. I think that's one of the things that we had an advantage, working with you early on, was that you already knew what you wanted to do. You said, I want to rank for these terms. I want to rank in these specific areas. Here's, generally speaking, what I want to accomplish. And that we kind of outlaid the specifics on how we were going to go about doing that. That's in my opinion, that's stage one because everybody has these big grandiose ideas, but they don't have a plan of what that end game looks like. So that's really, in my mind, stage one. Stage two would really be looking at in terms of competition, finding what's out there, seeing what we're going to go up against, so that we could create the best plan and formulate a budget for that plan. Because one of the things that I don't want to do is have somebody start off with a budget that's not going to work. That's not something that we do here. As you grow, things are going to get more competitive. People are going to respond to it, or maybe you're starting off in something that's really competitive out of the gate. So that's something that needs to be addressed. And really, I think the third thing, just to keep it really simple, because I don't want to get into like a lot of different things, there's so many technical aspects and different ways you could go about this, but understanding what your goals are in terms of how your business wants to be perceived and formulating a budget for that as well. So, what level of design are we doing in terms of a website? What message are we trying to convey? And also, how does that play into the ecosystem of your competitor? So if I
interrupt you,
go ahead.
let me interrupt you. Those are great points. Great points. I am getting a little bit of feedback from you.
Oh, is that for me?
Hold on,
I don't know if
can you guys hear me?
I can't.
Okay, that's good.
Does Brennan sound better than me?
I don't know if it's whose connectivity is, we're all working from home, but so one of the things the first thing you do in marketing for all the businesses out there is what David said, you got to decide who your customer is. Who are you targeting? And a lot of times people throw money at it and they don't have a clear vision. So who's your ideal customer? Who are you speaking to? It's the same thing you do when you speak for a living, when you do things. Who are you talking to? And that helps hone your message and hones what you're doing. And then the second thing is, you're right, David. I'm just kind of following up on what you said. Is there's a difference in marketing. It depends on how competitive the area is. Personal injury lawyers is highly competitive. A lot of people throw a lot of money at it. People that have been there for years. Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. You look at all the we see that in other things like we have TV, you have billboards, you have other things. So one of the things when I came to you is I knew my customer. I knew who I was speaking to. I knew the areas I wanted to rank in, and I knew that I wanted to have a strong Google presence. And so we set out to do that. And the first thing you told me was, I'm going to get it done for you tomorrow, right?
Yeah. I don't
know
exactly that.
It takes time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And one of the things when people put money into SEO and websites and doing this stuff, they got to appreciate is you're looking for and you taught me this, David. I'm repeating what you taught me is this is going to take time, and we do stuff and we do stuff and we do stuff. And then we're seeing the fruits of our labor now, but some of the ways Google works is things that you're doing now, they're not going to know for 6 months. They're not going to appreciate in terms of Google juice in 6 months. Is that fair?
That's absolutely fair. Yeah,
can
absolutely.
You guys talk a little bit about that?
Well, Google doesn't move as quickly as you like. Let's put it that way. We don't own Google. We don't control Google. It's like you said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So, and even though I think personally that your site is wonderful, Gary, Google's not going to think it's the most amazing site in the world. It's going to take time for it to pick all that stuff up. So like you said, even if we do something in month 1 or 2, we're not going to see that for 2 or 3 months at a time. Now, once that officially kicks in, yeah, you're going to be well on the road to success. But once we have the initial part of it taken care of, that's only going to build upon itself. And there's not just content. I mean, there's links, there's other profiles, there's backlinks that are created. That bot, Google's bot, is very busy. There's billions of websites out there, and they're trying to crawl them all to cache all the information to understand, weigh this site versus this site to see which one they should put there. And there's a lot of different factors that go into that. So absolutely, it's not an overnight success thing. I mean, a lot of people won't understand to achieve the level of success that you have. It takes, it can take years. Thankfully, due to everything that we put, in the basket and throughout there, it didn't take that long. I think it takes that long to be consistently high. You can always achieve different levels of success in different areas.
And Gary, you did ask who our ideal service client would be, and that would be anyone who needs help and is
for
looking.
Our end, yeah. And for your end too, if you think about it, anybody that needs help.
And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind, and to find the right relationship goes a really long way in the long run. I've got a question for you real quick, if that's all right. This is Ask a Lawyer after all.
Yeah.
Why aren't you on late night TV shows, commercials?
Well, it's not that I'm better than that or anything, or I look down on it. I made a decision that with what I wanted to spend and I kind of don't want to be a TV lawyer, honestly. I mean, because I have to go up and pick juries, and when you pick juries, you want to have that credibility, and there is a certain prejudice, or there's a certain image of a TV lawyer. Now, I know many TV lawyers are great trial lawyers too. And again, I'm not saying I'm above it, but what I decided was to do that. And that's what I think. And I wanted to win Google, because I think when people are injured and need help, they go to Google, and that's where they go, and that's where they ask questions. And then honestly, Brennan, I'm also not a big TV watcher. I mean, I do a little bit, but I honestly, I don't like commercials. I hate watching a show and having all these commercials come on. And I think people kind of do too. Now, on the other hand, how do you find a lawyer? So you need to do that too. So that was basically my calculus. I wanted to focus on a couple things and get them right. Mm-hmm. I believe that a lot of marketing isn't having the next genius idea. It's doing the basic stuff and doing it well and doing it consistent.
Consistency, yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you, Gary, that when you're looking at like who to hire, I mean, so many people just go to Google now. It's ridiculous. And your reviews, not to give you a plug here, but I mean, having that many reviews, it just shows when you're going to hire a lawyer, right, or you're going to hire a plumber, or whatever you're looking to do, you're going to see how people have interacted with that business. And, you get more information from Google than you do from a late night TV ad. You learn more about the business. You can see how other people have interacted with it. There's more to it than that.
So I want to talk a little bit about. I have a question for you, but I want to. You talked about a partnership. Some people think you hire a marketing company and they do it. Can you guys talk specifically about the partnership that you and I have, about the content that I generate, what you do with it, how you give me guidance on what to do, but how that we're a partnership?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I would like to think that we are sitting in a cubicle in your office, not a cubicle, but a desk. And so we're always around to help out and to offer advice. And the advantage of having an agency behind you is that you have more than one person doing one thing. You have a dozen people helping you succeed, and with different ideas, with different experiences, with different skill sets. And I think that that's a really important thing when it comes to helping you out to get to where you're trying to go.
have a good answer to this, I think. Gary, you said at one point you were kind of like a sci-fi movie fan. Do you ever remember that TV miniseries Dune? Did you ever watch
Oh
that?
yeah. Oh
He
yeah.
said, I am the man that can be many places at one time.
Oh yeah. Atreides. The Atreides.
Yeah, Paul Atreides,
Believe
yeah.
me, I know them all. Yeah, I read. It was Frank Herbert. It's a great book. I
You
read
got
it, and then the first movie with Sting was amazing, and apparently they're redoing it.
Yeah, I saw the preview. It looks pretty good, so we'll see if they can live up to the legend. But when you talk about a partnership, to Brennan's point, what he was saying
Hey,
is like,
hey, you know what I wanted? I would love to get a real sill suit and wear it for for Halloween here.
Well, Gary,
that'd be a cool idea. Yeah,
the spice is the worm, and the worm is the spice.
the
Hey,
spice.
I know you have a question, David, but I have a really important question. Brennan, do you have a razor endorsement and or a flannel endorsement, Brennan?
No, I do everything out of pocket.
Okay. All right.
His whole wardrobe pretty much looks like that. I think he has T-shirts and flannels,
That's
except when we're coming to your office. Then he puts on the tie.
There you go.
But just to answer that question, Gary, just to finalize that point, it's kind of like that. What Brendan was saying is like you have to be in so many different places, and I think the biggest value is like you're very in tune with your marketing. You know what your message is. You have some level of understanding of the market in general, and I think you're very genuine. There's a lot of people like Brendan said, the late night lawyers. And I'm not saying they're good or bad. It's just that comes off a certain kind of way. And for us to be able to take your message and distribute that consistently over all these different platforms, that's really where a big benefit of that partnership comes in. You're involved in the process. You do give us feedback, and then for our expertise in dealing with so many industries and so many different clients, we can show you what works and better guide where to put the money and the time.
So thank you. Yeah, no, I like our partnership, and I spend a lot of time generating content and working with you guys, and you guys do great stuff with it. So
yeah, you're everywhere.
well, we try to get our message out. It's important to teach people about stuff.
It definitely comes down to having a relationship. And Gary, you know that I'm going to have to ask a B question at some point. So do you want to get out of the way now?
Yeah, go ahead, shoot, brother.
All right. So if you're walking by a house and it has an apiary in it, and you get stung by bees and you go into anaphylactic shock, is that premise liability, or is that a lawsuit of some sort?
Or
Nope. You should have been carrying your EpiPen. Although now they're like $700 a piece. I got old EpiPens. No. How do you know where that bee came from? So Brendan, bees travel 2 miles around from their hive. So a bee will leave a hive, go 2 miles, go get nectar and pollen, and come back right in that same hive. I have 5 hives next to each other, like literally right next to each other. They will leave, go, and they won't go to the hive 3 feet away. They'll go to that hive in that hole. So you don't know if you're stung somewhere, you don't know if that bee came from that hive or an apiary where a house is or somewhere away. No, is Brendan, guess how many natural bees or wasp species there are in the United States, native to North America?
450. Exactly.
Did I already ask you that? How'd you know that?
I do my research because I know that you're going to ask me hard questions.
Yeah. So anyway, so how do you know it's not a natural bee or something? It's crazy. And honeybees are not native to North America. Let me ask you guys this. Let's jump to the nut here. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about today is what does and this is a question. There's a question. Kelly asked. My first question is, what is marketing tips for small business simply trying to survive right now? So we are in the midst of a corona pandemic. Businesses change. Most of America is small business. I have a small business. You serve small businesses. The last statistic I saw, and I could be wrong, is 1 out of 6 or 1 out of 7 small businesses are failing America right now. What does a small business do right now to market in the time that we are in right now?
I think, and Dave, you probably have more opinions on this than I do, but I think that the important thing is to be responsive to any sort of change. You know, hey, we have new hours, we have new services, we have new capabilities that we're adapting to what's going on. And it's important for marketing to move on that as quickly as possible because people expect it. And a lot of people also are sitting at home or working remotely and not being out in the world. So just identifying who those people are and what they're looking for to make sure that you lock down your target market base. Dave?
Well, I not to get philosophical, but I think there's this saying that it's not the strongest of a species that survive; it's those that are most adaptive to change. And I think a lot of people, when they focus on their business, they put themselves in a particular box. Like, I am in this platform, that therefore this platform is never going to fail. And then that's been part of why they fail. So for example, if you're a restaurant, I was literally talking to somebody about this morning. It says if you're a restaurant, right? So restaurants have obviously taken a big hit because you can't go in and eat. But when they base all their business on people being able to come in and eat versus offerings or being able to switch to a delivery only, a contactless method, or having an alternate way to get your product or service to people, I think that's something that people should focus more on. The other part of that, I would say, and what I mean by that is being adaptive, right? So how do I get my product or service to someone without having to do it the traditional way that you've relied on so far? You might not make as much, but you'll be able to sustain. And then also looking at, where are people most likely going to spend their time during a pandemic? Well, if you're working from home, so if you're not advertising on mobile, or if you're not doing a lot of things that are mobile specific because they're going to be on their phones a lot more, that's something you can switch your strategy to. And Gary, we had talked about that too, and trying to figure out where is the best place for certain ad spend, or what case types are going to be the most prevalent during this time. When people weren't driving as much, maybe it didn't make as much sense to advertise for car accident cases and things of that, but general injury cases, those are always. Does it make sense?
Yeah. No, it's good. That's good. And but let me hone down the specific nuts and bolts. I'm a restaurant guy. I own a carpentry business. I'm a painter. I'm a do whatever. There's a lot of business. I'm a photographer. There's a lot of businesses out there. What do they do now? And can I answer the question and then turn it over to you guys too? Because
I'd like to hear your feedback. Sure.
Well, I think one of the things is that we remember is we build on what we did before. So you got to be, and this is kind of what you got to be positioned right. Okay. So when Corona hit, a lot of people were not, my business where I'm internet based, that's what you said, TV versus I'm powerful on Google, I'm powerful on Facebook. We were ready for it. Now, it's not like I knew this was going to happen, but we were ready for it, and we also adapted really quickly. But the other thing is that you got to be willing to try new things. You may mess stuff up. You may not do stuff right. So one of the ways I think of marketing is just try it, do it. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. So people with marketing ideas that never execute on them, that is a waste of time. Just do it. This show right here, what we are doing literally right here, was hatched with you and me talking, us three talking, and saying, what are you going to do? And I said, well, let's start talking to people. It's hard to talk to people because now people aren't going to be in the office or on the street or at the water cooler anymore. So let's do it. And we tried it. And now we've been doing it every Wednesday or every week, almost every week, pretty much since probably April. And so
unless you're too busy, yeah.
Right. And then I go,
which is a good thing.
Someone else hops in or something else. But the other thing, so I've tried. I have podcasts. I've given away bikes for kids. We tried we can go on and on. We tried a million different things, and they work for a while, or they don't. And you try to do it, and you just try to get the word out there and be out there for people to be open to be able to be there for them. But anyway, I think I spoke too long, but that's one of the things that we need to have the idea is just do it. It's Nike, and don't be afraid to change and try new things.
Gary, I think you answered your own question there. I do have a question for you, and I'm not sure if someone else asked this already yet, but when it comes to marketing for smaller businesses, what kind of ROI should they expect, and what kind of revenue should they plan for
Well,
in your?
It sounds like a question for me. I guess Gary can talk about it, but
yeah, well, number one, it depends on your business. So if you're so you can see this house I'm in. You can see I'm in. We painted this for my kid, and he doesn't live here, and now it's my office. So my 2-year-old has my office, and now I'm in his. But we have a burger law. That's our fancy marketing. So no, I do stuff outside. I love working from home. So when I moved in here, I hired a painter off Google that was the best person. But I got in, they ripped me off, and I ended up throwing them off the job. So they were needing to make a lot of money off their Google ads, and they needed that high ROI. So that may be but it depends on the business. I mean, if you are selling cupcakes, you can't spend as much money on a lead as I do if I want to get a $50,000, $100,000, $1 million case where I'm going to help an injured person who's fighting insurance companies. They're not going to get a recovery unless they get a good advocate like me. And so anyway, so my ROI is high. My return on investment is high. But it's also the kind of law I've chosen to do over time. There's a reason why good lawyers matriculate to personal injury business, but there's also good lawyers in other areas. So let me get down to nuts and bolts. Brennan, I think I spend $200 or $300 a call. Every call that comes to me, so if you want my cost per lead, that's it, $200 or $300. Now my ROI is a little bit tougher because depends on the year and the case and different stuff. So it's not as translatable as I don't sell widgets, I don't paint houses, I'm not a restaurant. But people need to think about it. It's a great question because that's exactly what informs us about what David started talking about in the beginning about how much money you're going to spend. So what you
can expect for that money too. Yeah, absolutely.
Let me spin it around to you guys now, if I could. When you have a new business coming in, same question back to you guys. When you guys have a new business coming into you or an established business, when you start talking about ROI and money to put in and what to target, what are the types of guidelines and parameters and things you need to make decisions on and or teach them about?
I think the biggest thing for me would be where are they starting from, right? Do they have, like you said, are they established business or are they just starting out? Because you have to approach that very differently, especially if you're working with investor money, it's a whole different world. That is a very set amount that they have. They have to meet that, and they expect certain things for that. I'll use an example of an existing client. We had a client that originally came to us, and they were doing around like 2.5 to 3 million per year. Now, at the end of 2020, despite the pandemic, they're about to cross 6 million in a period of about 2.5 years. So they're going to be in a different position than someone else because they've already, like when you first came with, they connected to bring it with other companies. They know what to expect a little bit. I mean, obviously working with us is much different. But they're going to be in a very different marketing position, dollars-wise, ad spend-wise, and also familiarity with all the different platforms. So, we would approach that differently. I would also look at, like you said, based upon the industry. How are certain people going to? How much does the market bear for any given industry? So, if you're in the HVAC, like you said, the service-based industry, the HVAC guy versus a landscaping guy versus a personal injury lawyer, very different in terms of their total cost. If we're looking at someone that's just starting off, I wouldn't say it's a drastically different approach, but you have to approach it from a different angle, is that they have to have that ROI. Not to say that we wouldn't approach the same for someone else, but this is literally going to make or break the business. Now, I would like to think, and the majority of the businesses that have came to us for things of that nature, they've budgeted for marketing, right? And I think that's a key phrase in what we're talking about. You have to budget for marketing. You can't, like you said, Gary, you can't expect something in month 1 or 2, and that's going to carry you for 3 or 4 years. It just doesn't work that way. And like you said, you're going to have to take risks. You're going to have to say, well, maybe Facebook is a good thing. Let's try it. Maybe, You know, if you're B2B, maybe LinkedIn's going to be a better choice. Let's start with, and I've always preached this to you, Gary, let's start cheap, see how that works, make our revisions at the cheaper level, and then once we know it's working, bump it up. And those are things that can really be applied across the board. You know, really, I think the biggest thing between an established business and one that's just starting, you have more to work with. You have a higher budget. You have established branding. So having that established branding means we don't have to spend so much getting someone to look a certain way. And Gary, I was, you know, if you remember the very first version of your website versus where it's at now, it's complete worlds apart. Because, you know, you changed, the business changed. What customers, now that you've started to achieve more success, what they expected from you changed. And then no matter where they wanted to find you, it had to be consistent. So, and that's a difference. And I know I'm giving you a long answer, but that's one of the differences between, you know, your startup and your more established business. You have to look at different things, but you look at the same things differently. I'll leave it at that.
Gary, if I could jump in here and ask you a question that's a little off topic, is that all right?
I would expect nothing less.
Of course. I was curious, how are mediations different or any sort of trials different using things like Zoom or Skype? Is that a problem? Do you think that's a consistent thing? Do you think that'll alter any sort of case result if you're on camera rather than in person? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a great question, and let me link it to what Dave was just saying. It's the same, just like it's the same principles. It's the same thing, but you're just doing it a little differently. It's the same basic lessons. Like Dave just said, I just typed it in the note. I don't know if you can see it. Efficacy before scaling. Make sure it works before you scale it. And Dave, we've talked about that and we've tried it. Is this work?
Yeah.
If this doesn't work, Gary, this works. I think it'll work, blah, blah, blah. And then you keep talking about it. It's the same thing like the same lessons now for marketing is, and I want to ask you guys this, how do you, are you going to spend your money putting 10 or 20 or 30 grand into a new website rebuild so that you can rank better a year from now? Or are you also going to spend money on PPC now or Facebook ads now? You probably need to do a little both, but that doesn't change. That calculus, that balance, that all the marketing doesn't change. So bringing it to answering your question, Brennan, it's the more plus a champ plus a même chose, which is French for the more things change, the more they stay the same. And if you think that I'm fancy and I know French, it's not. It's in a Rush song. It's in a Rush song on the back of 2112, which is my favorite rock band. Very sad to have to lose Neil Peart this year. The best drummer in the history of rock and roll. Things change. So we're in this medium now. We're doing it on video now. We're doing this, but I'm doing a CLE to a bunch of mediators put by this big mediation company next month. And I'm going to show them my tricks, what I do. So I make these documents. I make these Word documents about what the offers are. And I take good parts of depositions, or I take good parts of the last one I did. I took the defendant's doctor's report, which was great for me, and linked up all our medical, and even said my guy needed a future surgery. I took it, I put it on the document, I highlight, I put it in yellow, and then I share screen and I show it on the screen. So I share screen, I do different stuff as much, and then so I didn't know if you guys knew this. You're going to be shocked that lawyers have big egos. I know. Hold on, I know you're shocked. So the funny thing about this. So I literally talked to a lawyer yesterday who hasn't done a deposition since March, and she couldn't figure out how to do it and that kind of stuff. And I was like, or she or he, whoever it was, and I said, you should be doing these. Do them by Zoom. I share screen. I share documents. I record it on Zoom. You got to roll with the punches. But to get to my point about lawyers have big egos, and I know I'm over talking, but lawyers think that if they're in the room and they're asking brilliant questions, all of a sudden the sky's going to part and the witness is going to say exactly what you want. Don't flatter yourself. You're not that good. You're not going to influence things that much by being in the room versus doing it by video. So you got to alter your tactics. You got to do different stuff. But Just like and just look, it's the same. You always got to change, but again, it stays the same. So just like in marketing, we're changing now and we're doing different stuff, and businesses need to change to survive. That's what Dave said before. It's not the strongest who survive; it's the most who change. And it's the same thing with being a trial lawyer. I tell my clients all the time that being what one of the things lawyers do is shit changes on us all the time. Something happens, a depo goes south, you get a document in, something happens. You always got to change it. You always got to go around it. You just got to keep winding. You got to adjust. You got to modify and go. Just like anything else in life. That's just the way it is. And you can either
wind. Responding to Google's algorithm.
Right.
Because that changes all the time. Yeah.
You got to surrender to that. If you surrender to the idea that you always got to be moving and shaking and doing and stuff, then you're easy with it, man. So let me ask Brennan and David, tell me 3 ways, and I'm ambushing you. Tell me three things you guys have done to change marketing for your clients in the pandemic. What 3 things? Just name 3 things you've done or recommended to clients that are changes that you guys have done to try to help businesses adapt to the new environment that we're in.
Well, Brennan, do you want to go?
Yeah, I muted myself for a second there.
Oh.
I think number 1 would be opening communication, even more so than we have in the past, and just being very transparent. And that's gone a long way with everybody that we work with, yourself included. I mean, how many times did we jump on a Zoom meeting in my bedroom? That sounded bad. You know what I'm talking about.
Well, what Brennan's talking about is, because we can't have these sit-down meetings, making sure that our reports are more consistent, that we're more transparent in the efforts. Because, Gary, you remember, like in years past, we would have our, quarterly or annual or every 6-month meeting. We'd come in, I'd show you everything. Now it's a bit more difficult to do that. I mean, we still could do it, but I'm going to have to walk across the room with a mask on and slide you a piece of paper. It's very different. So, making sure that people are aware of what we're doing and the value in that. And also, not that we didn't do this before, but just taking a really, big microscope and just saying, like, what is working for this person? Because I know that they are relying on us to carry them through this. So transparency reports, making sure that we're on top of every single, whether it be a trend or whether it's a modification or being aware of all the different efforts that they have down to a very finite point so that we can be agile, so that we can make adjustments to keep things going. I would say, I guess, I don't know if that counts as 2 of your 3. I don't really know if there's significantly a third because, I think when you have
I have it.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, if you want to volunteer, but I mean, for me personally, I think that the better plan that you have going into something, that you don't have to deviate as much. Even if you have to adjust things, you don't have to drastically change them. Like what we're doing now is an evolution of when you were doing videos and sending them to us versus now we just do them live and then we take those and distribute those. It's the same but different, if that makes sense.
Well, that was the thing that I've seen you guys do is step up your video game. Not that you didn't have it before, because we had done videos before. We've done videos. We did some radio talk show type of style stuff, and we had success with that. But the idea of doing a show like this, a Facebook Live show, I know you guys have invested in equipment to get better audio, better video, that kind of stuff. So I think I have seen you guys step up your video production game to assist you with that.
Well, go ahead, Gary.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, David.
I was just going to say that I don't know that that's necessarily a reaction to COVID, and more so it's a reaction to how people consume media, if that makes sense. More people now are tuning into YouTube or looking at Facebook. They're on all these different platforms. I mean, and to what Brennan was talking about earlier, and Gary, what I think you also alluded to is that, you just don't watch TV. People are busier now. They're trying to, they don't have as much time to consume media, so that the way and the places that they consume it is different. So therefore, it wasn't necessarily, I mean, there was a side benefit that, when COVID happened, we kind of already had these things set up, but it was following a trend before COVID really became a very large concern in so many people's lives. We just saw that coming. It was lots more people are on YouTube. People are starting up channels, and some of the equipment is expensive, but you don't always need to have some, $20,000 setup just to produce videos. I mean, Gary, you had said it. It's, as we say about our partnership, things I've learned from you, don't let perfection get in the way of progress. That's something that you taught me. It's like, let's move forward, and make sure, because admittedly, and we've learned this just with buying new equipment. Sometimes you get the new equipment, you have to learn how to use it. And if you haven't built up to that, you're like, what am I doing now? So absolutely.
Don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
That's right. Yeah.
That's another way to say the same thing. Is it time for me to ask you a question? Or you guys going to ask me? Where are we going now? Because I got one for you.
It's up to you, Brendan. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah. If I steal a car and get in a wreck, do I have a personal injury claim?
Did you crash the car yourself?
I didn't say I crashed it. I just said if I stole a car and got in a wreck.
Were you wearing bad flannel?
No, I was wearing the best flannel available.
He was wearing his lumberjack flannel.
Yeah. It's a hypothetical, of course.
Yeah. Look, if you're a criminal, yeah, if you're a criminal, I'm not going to take your case. It's absolutely. So I literally have. I've had cases where I find out the guy's drinking and driving and stuff. I will terminate the client. I literally have a case that I settled today, finally, after the client was going to take the settlement, not take the settlement, will take the settlement. And I sent you guys an email about it earlier today.
I remember seeing
and that client is not happy with me, even though I did a great job for him and got him a policy limit. It's not confidential. I got him a $100,000 settlement, and they weren't going to pay it. But I know the other lawyers in there, and I'll go try the case. And you know what no one knew about that case, and I didn't tell the other side, is that the reason why nothing happened in the case for almost a year is because the client was in jail. He was in jail on another charge for a year, and then he came out of the pokey, and I settled it. If the other side would have known that, they would not have settled that case. But that release is signed and done. So that answers your question. Let me ask you guys I have two questions for you.
Yeah.
One I put up already. And it's one of those no good deed goes unpunished. I hope he's happy. I really hope it's a great recovery. Put a lot of money in your pocket, move on with his life. When COVID first hit, one of the things that was on the chopping block for some small businesses was their marketing departments. This question comes from Kelly. Mm-hmm. Internal or outsourced. What do you say to people who did that?
Well, we definitely, early on, like in March, April, there was several service-based industries and businesses that would go on pause or just be scared and say, hold on a second, let's rethink what we're doing, because they didn't, everyone was very unaware of what the future is going to look like. And then things settled down a little bit. What was the actual question?
What do you think about people who stop
pausing marketing?
Yeah, pausing marketing, stop spending.
Well, we actually had some people do that, and again, I don't judge them. I mean, they're the owners of their own business. It's not my call, and I don't have any self-interest if they choose to pause. They're going to know their financial situation better than I do. They're going to be able to make those decisions, and if that's what they have to do, then that's what they have to do. But I mean, when your business is at its most dire and you need clients the most, that's when you need visibility the most, right? That's when you need to create some type of campaign that showcases, hey, we're still doing this. I mean, how many times did you go to a restaurant site or even Google, when Google Maps adapted to it, they had whether dine-in only, if they had delivery or not. That was the time when they should have, not necessarily doubled down, because I don't think that would have been a wise decision, but look at their overall marketing and understand specifically what is going to give them the most success. For the people that did not pause, they weathered the storm just fine, and they're actually doing better than even before COVID hit now. As everything begins to pick back up, as we learn more about what the dangers of COVID are, I don't know that anybody could have. I mean, ask anybody back in December of 19 what 2020 was going to be like. I mean, nobody would have expected all this. It's just been really tough. And I think that, that as a business owner, you have some built-in resolve, you have some built-in resilience to things. because it is tough. You know, Gary, you own your own firm and everything. You understand that and I own this business, and you have to really have that built-in resilience. And for when people react to, you know, COVID to say, I'm pausing all marketing and stopping all marketing, that's not, and what I say this without any self-interest, you know, that's not the best way to go about it. The best way is to figure out, like what we've done, you know, for your firm and many other people, what is the best way to utilize the existing spend that we have available, or do we want to cut it back just because we are unsure, but then in these places we want to keep that going? And my opinion on that, you know, is that the people that, well, I have my factual opinion on it, if there is such a thing. Let me say this: the facts are that the people that paused are in a much worse situation now for their business than the ones that did not. When you look at how many visits they get now, the ROI, the amount of leads, because they weathered the storm. Basically, let's say if I have, you know, 10 clients that paused and I had 40 that didn't, those 40 that didn't have 6 months of marketing that now the other ones have to catch up to. Does that make sense? So we were doing things the entire time. I've got hundreds of pages. I've got God knows how many links. I've got God knows how many leads. And when they get those leads, they're going to close those leads and they're going to reinvest more into their marketing. So now they're not just in terms of, you know, the organic benefits, but they're way ahead in terms of advertising dollars when they set their budgets for 2021. I don't agree with people doing that again, but that's not my call to make. What we learned from that, I don't know that we necessarily learned anything other than what I just described.
You know, there's an idea of retrenchment in financially as a business owner. That's fine. What the thing I did was, and you guys know this, is I did not change my SEO and what I was doing. What I did do was I changed some of my PPC and my paid marketing because no one was driving it.
Right.
You know, and so there's a difference between there's smart retrenchment and smart spending versus just knee-jerk reaction. But also, it's a scary time, so you kind of don't know what's happened. So it's a new deal. So, but I hear you. You make great points.
Well, and Gary, you know, my statement that I always say is, like, you know, our SEO is like the organic version of AdWords. It's going to cost more. It's going to take longer. But ultimately, you know, no one should be beholden to one of these paid platforms. I mean, you know, do you want to pay for your industry? And I'm not going to say publicly what we bid, but, you know, if for everybody out there that wants to bid, you know, $100 to click on something, I don't, and I don't, not only, you know, as your marketer, and I'm sure that you don't. So if there's any way that we can get leads from places that are less expensive, you know, it's not about always cutting back. It's about where we're putting funds and what is the most appropriate place, whether it's, you know, a long-term or a short-term focus. You know, AdWords and paid traffic, all that stuff is great, but, you know, ultimately, you know, it's like a light switch. You know, I don't think you get the lasting benefit out of paid that you do from organic. And I think people perceive it differently. I mean, how many ads do you skip past? You know, I'm not to say that everybody does that, but, you know, I think there's a different view of a company when their organic presence and their visual presence are both very strong.
So, Brennan,
I was just going to say, it's like driving down the highway and you see a billboard for Chuck's Diner, and you're like, oh, look, Chuck's Diner. Doesn't mean you're going to go there on exit 23.
But if you search for great food places near me, that's probably a more reliable suggestion.
Brennan, because you've asked me a couple bad questions, I put up the next question. I put up the next question for you to ask me on the screen.
Sure. Well, Gary, have you ever had a bad experience with a marketing firm or an advertising agency? And what happened? How did you come out of that? How did you transform from a caterpillar to butterfly?
Yeah, I have. Look, I've been doing this for 28 years. October 9th was I looked on my law license. I was sworn on October 9th in 1992. So, and my prior firm, we threw money at, we more threw money at advertising. I bought big Yellow Pages ads. It was hard to figure out the ROI. I had what I affectionately called, or not affectionately called, marketing vultures around me, coming to me, over-promising and underperforming. And I had, you know, they'd say this, that, or the other thing. And, you know, to agree with you, Brennan, the thing that I hate now is when people talk about impressions. Like, hey, we got this impressions. Like, yeah, but no one clicked through. That doesn't mean anything. So it's just like driving by a billboard on a highway. You're never going to go there. So so I've had bad experiences of big companies over promising and underperforming. They have their place in the system. I get it. But what I do, when I started my own firm, I was forced, I didn't have anybody to blame but myself. It forced me to be more accountable to myself. I read marketing books. I educated myself. I'm an educated I'm an educated consumer of marketing services now. I was not before. And I learned to look underneath the hood. I learned to look, for Chuck's Diner, I look to see what's behind in the buffet. How do they make the food? And I see, you guys know this. I mean, literally, David, I was writing content. I was putting it on WordPress. You were editing it and doing it. I wrote the first 100 pages and this or that. And we're like, oh, shit, we got to deal with this guy. But I backed off. But so now I do it, and I'm a partner with you, and I listen to you, and you look for me. So, and I see the results all the time. Your results, your results are amazing. I mean, we started this 5 years ago, and we're beating everybody, which is great. And it's a good partnership. So I learned to not just throw money at marketing, no matter what it is. What are you getting? What's your ROI? Ask the questions. I can't tell you so many meetings I was with, and they show me graphs or impressions and talk about words. And I'm like, listen, I'm a smart guy. I don't know what you guys are saying, but I kind of don't want to say it because,
Right.
And sometimes, but and the other thing is, there's not, this ain't a one horse town anymore. There's other good companies where you can go to and get real good marketing advice. So that's my answer to that question.
Sure. Well, and as I've explained this to a lot of people, and Gary, we've talked about it too, is, when you get to the higher end tier, it ultimately it's not an individual versus individual. You basically have one marketing company versus another marketing company. And one of the biggest problems that I've said this for years is, how can you promise something that you can't do for yourself, right? So when you have these companies out here making these big claims, it's like, oh, well, we can get you number 1 or number 2 or number 3 on Google. We'll get you here and we'll get you there, and you're going to get all these leads. Well, why aren't you doing that? And I think that a lot of people should look a bit more closely at that. And I'm not trying to be a braggart. We don't practice that here. Like you've said, we speak softly and carry a big stick, but I think that's something to really look at when you're choosing, your marketing company is, have they been able to do the same thing for themselves? And obviously they're going to be the most important to themselves. Why wouldn't they do their own stuff first? And if they can't do it for themselves, how can they do that for you? Do they even have the experience to back up all the things that they're saying? And Gary, I think I've seen more bad marketing companies than you ever have, because literally every single person that comes to me has one that works for them right now. Every new lead that comes to the door, hey, I work with another marketing company, and here's what they're doing. And I look at these reports and I'm like, fire them right now. Like, get rid of them. This isn't working. And they know it's not working. That's why they're reaching out. They're business owners. They might not be smart on marketing, but they're smart enough to run a business and realize when they're getting taken advantage of.
Just so you know, while we're talking, I Googled SEO St. Louis, and you're number 2.
Oh, well.
So back it up. No, you know what? Tomorrow when I do it, you'll be number 1. It's all good.
It flip flops, and I have
no. I mean, no. You're in the 3-pack, and you're right. And as we've talked about,
I think we're number 1 in maps, though. We're number 1 in maps.
I'm sure you are. No, you are. I see it. You are number 1 in maps, and after you get anyway, you're right there. So, you guys back it up. That's a really good point that you make. Google your marketing company and see how they're doing.
Quick question for you, Gary. Do we want to do like a shotgun round for any user submitted questions that we might have looked over?
Yeah, no, I've been putting them up. Let me. I think I've gotten them all. Although here's the one that I haven't gotten. I'm going to give this question to you guys. You guys answer it. And then I'm going to look to see if there's any other questions that I missed. But that's a great point, Brennan. Brennan and David. Brennan Girdler and David Cly of Orange Design and Web Design and Company. Kelly asks, taking what we learned from the first quarantine lockdown, do you have any tips for small businesses, specifically if when everything shuts down again sometime during this winter?
Yes, don't give up. And again, I say that without any self-interest, because the fact is that regardless, and I know the world's very divided right now. Regardless of who gets elected, it's not going to remain shut down forever. Eventually, this COVID thing is going to come to pass. People have a hard time realizing that this is not going to last forever. It may last for a bit longer. I don't think anybody can predict that, but you have to weather the storm. You have to make sure that you're making the best decisions for your business. And like I said earlier, if you need to pause marketing funds to keep your company and your employees, your company afloat and your employees employed, then you need to do that. But if you don't have any visibility, if people aren't aware that you still exist, if you're not adapting to all the different things that Facebook and Google, as they change these, a lot of people weren't even aware that you could do like the dine-in or walk-in option. They don't manage their Google My Business or Google Maps profiles or Facebook stuff. They don't even react. They're not aware of it because they're not doing it every single day. I mean, Gary, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but when's the last time you've had to log into your Google Maps profile? Never, because we do all the time, right? So, that's one of the things that just people shouldn't give up on it. This is going to come to pass. I have no experience to be able to tell anybody when it's going to, but if it comes to pass that they lock things down, be smart about where you're putting your money, realize what your goals are when we come out of that lockdown, and put your focus strictly on that. Don't focus on the lockdown so much itself.
I think I would like to chime in here for a second. And I think that the reason that your agency, your firm and our agency work so well together is because we're on the same page when it comes to surrounding yourself with good people.
And results, our goals are the same.
It's let's get it done. Let's have good people who know what they're doing. And if you have good people, you can survive. If you crash a plane in the Andes and you're in a cannibalism scenario, it's like you don't want to kill anybody. You want everyone to last. So, and I think that's where both of our teams are, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, we have. I'm blessed to have a great team around me,
and I know most of your team, and they're all fantastic.
They're good people. They're good people.
Shout out to Rodney, Casey, and Tiffany, and all the other people we work with there.
No, Jennifer.
And Brennan, Jennifer, can you believe she's buying a house with your brother?
Yeah, I need to talk to him about that.
Yeah, well, yeah. When you talk to him, mention. So I have there's a couple other questions. I got a great question from a poor gentleman, Clarence Graham, who has a legal issue about a legal claim. Clarence, rather than analyzing your case on the spot in this show, call me at 314-542-2222. Email me at gary@burgerlaw.com. We got a caption up here for info@burgerlaw.com. Email us there, and I'll answer your question for free. There was another call from Mr. Ivers. Michael, I think I've seen your emails. If you've emailed me two different things, I will respond to that. I made a note myself. That's the only real outstanding questions. Any predictions, gentlemen, for the last two? Anything to look out for more specific in the last 2 months of this year?
An asteroid impact.
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't really have any predictions. I think that this is something I think I've learned and that most people should learn. Again, going back to that whole divided issue. And Gary, you actually did that, when you had one of your past Ask a Lawyer videos when you were debating someone that didn't have the same views as you, one of your good friends. Just remember we're all people, and not to hate, and not to, especially since we're talking about business decisions, don't base business decisions on people that have different views than you. I guess I'll leave it with, just be the person that you want to see in the world, run your business, just to where it's always consistently good. Things are going to happen that are outside of everybody's control. And in terms of marketing, for MySpace and that, I don't think that there's anything significantly different that anyone would need to do. If you have something that's working, then keep doing that. Invest more into that, and never lose sight of where the end goal is.
Well,
that's my philosophical answer.
To echo. All right, sorry, Brennan, go ahead.
Oh no, it's way off track. So
to echo what you were saying, David, is I hope that too, that a month from now, with an election behind us and Thanksgiving coming up, that people can, and the holidays, which is a time I love with my family, that I hope people can focus on what unites us rather than what divides us, and can focus on gratitude and what we give thanks for, and to celebrate our lives and what we have. We get, whether it's the COVID, it's a stressful time, man. It's a stressful time for everybody. And the political season and some of the other stuff, I don't want to get into it. It doesn't help in a pandemic. But hopefully people can get beyond that, relax, and focus on having gratitude. And the more you give, the more you get. And I think that tends to help people. So,
sure, yeah, it's definitely been tough. I mean, every way that somebody could be hit, health, financially, family, closeness, friends. I mean, it was all affected in just this past year, and that's why to say it right back to you, Gary. I think you're right. People just need to focus on their relationships, their family. Continue to be strong in terms of the business. We had some questions that were like, what if things change? I don't really think you should be aware of it and you should react to it as necessary, but you shouldn't fear it. I don't think that fear is whether your fears are political or health or financial, you shouldn't let it control you, nor any decisions for yourself or the business.
I'm just really worried about flannel and razor blades and education. Those are my top three things that I'm trying to figure out in this country.
Good luck. Well, I actually went and shaved for this show. And then you guys are I'm going to send you guys some raises. I have a lot of gratitude for our friendship and our business partnership to both you guys. I value your opinions, your wise counsel, and that's why and I look forward to another great year next year and years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I got some plans to talk about next month regarding that. So,
and honestly, if anyone's listening, it takes a team, and we all love you. So.
Yeah, you can't see behind me here, but there's like a whole team of people that are right here. So it's not just me, even though we're representing all of us today. But it takes more than one. It's like my Dune reference. The person that can be in many places at one time. That's Gary Berger. So next year we'll see it a lot more.
Yeah, Gary, do you want to talk about Dune someday? Because
oh yeah, sure.
Because
sure.
Jay and I can talk about Dune for hours with you.
My eBay addiction has not served me well. I actually have a signed copy of Dune, the DVD series. So,
by Frank Herbert. Wow, that's cool. I read them all. It's been years, but I read The Lord of the Rings a lot more, and I'm a big Foundation guy. So Isaac Asimov's Foundation trilogy and all that, and the Daniel Olaf series, and then all that stuff. But anyway, yeah, we'll do that sometime if we ever see each other live, which may never happen. All right, guys, listen, I really appreciate it, everybody. Go to orangedesign.com, webdesignandcompany.com. Call David Cly or Brennan Girdler for help. Get your marketing game on for the end of 2020 and kick it in 2021. Thanks a lot for being my guest today on Ask a Lawyer, gentlemen.
Gary, I appreciate it.
See you.